Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody inside and outside the ballpark. My name is NovedPlayer, and welcome to episode 57 of the Noved Notes podcast, where we talk to many creators and communities inside of the VRChat platform. I'm your host, and with me today, I'm extremely honored to have one of the, in my personal opinion, one of the biggest PC world creators inside of the platform. Also, 2024 VRCA Game Puzzle World winner. We have Beyond.
Hi.
Beyond, welcome to the podcast. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess first and foremost, for the general listening audience, what exactly do you do inside of VRChat?
I'm a world creator. I started around 2 years ago. I've made a couple worlds. Primarily, Terrors of Nowhere is the one I'm mostly known for now. And yeah, there's not really much more to say. I made Terrors of Nowhere. That's pretty much like my only
I mean, you also did make Bus to Nowhere too.
Oh yeah, I guess there is Bus to Nowhere too. That was my first world. I'm just kind of the Terrors guy. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's not really much to.
I mean, that's fair.
About it. I guess I can say like I've been maintaining it for the past 2 years. Even adding updates constantly, and I've also been managing the community that's kind of been supporting it since its development and release.
No, fair enough. Well, I guess kind of one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, breathe. But I guess one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, right? So obviously you've been around for a little bit. So what got you into VRChat in the first place?
It was probably I think I joined in 2017, so I'm kind of an old person. I think I joined. I'm trying to think of who it was. It was definitely because of like VRChat, like the videos on YouTube at the time that were kind of popular, that got me into the platform. It got me kind of interested in like the happenings on it, and it was kind of like something I wanted to be a part of. So I joined the platform in 2017. Kind of ran around as like a mute person for like 4 years, give or take. I got into like avatar creation during that time. Met a lot of people, and eventually picked up world creation, which is where I made Bus to Nowhere. And then I kept up that for like a year, and then I made Terrors.
No, fair. I guess kind of to go into things. So what got you into like Unity development and, making things with Unity, like within VRChat?
It's hard to say what really made me want to do it. I guess I just kind of like, I really liked at the time, I liked a lot of the worlds at the time that were kind of like really creatively unique. I'm trying to think of like some, but like it's kind of hard to remember because it was so long ago. But I always liked really unique worlds that weren't just like simple hangouts. I liked the game worlds mostly, and I thought stuff like I wanted VRChat to have more things like that where it wasn't just a hangout. It was more kind of something to do while you're hanging out, which I think is where I feel my niche pretty well.
No, absolutely. I would say, because obviously, with both the Bus to Nowhere and Terrors to Nowhere, those are hands down still to this day, since release, have been some of the biggest PC worlds that most PC players go to nowadays. Especially Terrors. I believe if post editor, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe if I saw it correctly, I believe Terrors specifically has 2 million visits, I think. If I recall correctly.
Yes, that is correct. I think we're almost at 3 million. We're like 3/4 of the way there, or something like that.
Probably
which
when
is
this episode
insane.
comes out.
Like I didn't never thought something like that astounds me really. I did not think I would ever have 3 million visits on a world of mine, but like here we are. Yeah, Terrors is like, it's definitely super popular, I guess is the word. Like without like that's just fact. Like it has a spot in like PC Spotlight on VRChat. Sometimes like on the weekends it has like upwards of like 1,000 like or so people like concurrently playing. It's kind of insane. Um, yeah, like
No, fair enough.
it's a little overwhelming sometimes.
No, that's fair. I was gonna say because with terrors, right? There is so much content out there when it comes to terrors of nowhere. Whether it's shorts, TikToks, fan art, as we've seen within terrors of nowhere. There's a lot of fan art, and a lot of amazing stuff that comes with it. Um, so I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask, because you've been doing, world creation for a little bit now, you kind of mentioned how it wasn't expected to some extent. So I guess since you're now living in this place where, the worlds that you created have the hearts of, literally thousands of people, um, what is the feeling that, or I guess kind of explain what the feeling's like to have like so many people support your stuff? Like what kind of mindset goes through your head when when all this is going down?
It's definitely like I have kind of a sense of duty, I feel now to kind of make sure it's the best it can be. That's sort of why like at the like beginning of the year, this year, I said that like Terra's gonna be moving on to other worlds. But yeah, I've been still consistently updating Terra's like constantly through like the entirety of this month because like the one or two things I thought would be really cool to have in Terra's or like something I wanted to do. Um, but I think that the support definitely is why Terrace is where it is now because I probably would have stopped working on it a really long time ago had it not had the following it does now. And I think a lot of like it's mostly the passion of like our community because there's like a lot of super cool things that people have done in the name of Terrace and it's like it's kind of insane. Like I'm still surprised by a lot of it. Like I remember back when like getting my first like piece of fan art was like huge and now it's almost like I see something new like almost daily and that's like it's definitely something like it
Oh,
really it's overwhelming like I'm one piece of fan art used to like have me squealing for like hours but like now I have it like all the time.
no, for sure. Because obviously a lot of people highly enjoy, both worlds. I mean, there's still people playing Bus to Nowhere, even though it's a little on the older side now. But I mean, people are still actively on the daily, still playing that world. Even after you did like that mega event with the I thought what was it 1 million mile ending or whatever the ending was.
Yeah, the solstice ending, yeah, we did that community event. It's kind of silly enough that you mentioned the age of it. It's sadly like no longer possible to actually it's kind of possible. It's just a lot harder now to get that ending because of like the instances can only last like 30 something days now, which is like not enough time to actually get the ending anymore. Which is why we did that huge event because I wanted people to see the solstice ending uh, because it's kind of it was like the end of Bus to Nowhere. It was kind of like the huge like final challenge, I guess, of the world.
Yeah, because I was actually there during that event, and I remember the emotions going through that event because I mean, like you'd said, like nobody can really experience that now. It's damn near impossible now, if not impossible. Um, there's probably somebody out there who's destined to try to figure out how to
Oh,
do it again.
there has been some insane strategies like people have come up with to like still go get that ending. Like stuff like leaving like there's a police helicopter that chases you through Bus to Nowhere sometimes. And apparently like if you leave it alive, you can actually get more speed uh by leaving it alive instead of destroying it for the trophy and weapon. So like Yeah, it's kind of cool that like there's a lot of like even with a game as old as that, there's a lot of like strategy people are like still cooking for it.
No, for sure. Um, well, that's what's up. I guess kind of one of the things I want to go into, kind of to like going back to some of the other worlds, because obviously, with Bus and Terrors, being the main worlds that you've made that everyone knows and loves, because you also do have a few other ones, like Waiting for Nothing and Kuro's Apartment, as well as Smile Ghost. Um, but um, so I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask, because obviously with Kuro's Apartment, it's more chill world esque. It's not necessarily something that you're jumping into the action per se.
Yeah.
So what kind of made you want to make like a chill world essentially? Was it just for like a hub, or was there like a particular
Um,
reason?
it was mostly that I wanted just to, like in the case of Kuro's Apartment, it was purely because I wanted a home world. I just wanted to make my own home world because like I wanted somewhere to load in that wasn't like Bus to Nowhere, because Bus to Nowhere takes like a little bit to load in. I wanted something lighter. Um, with Waiting for Nothing, that world is actually going to be like a sequel world to Bus to Nowhere in a sense, where stuff would just kind of happen around the little like bench that you wait on, but it never really like nothing really happened with it. So because I started working on Terrace at the time, so um, yeah, so it's just kind of left as it is now. I did use it in one of the server events at one point when I was like initially revealing terrors. There was a bunker in the world that eventually opened up from people solving parts of an ARG that was going on at the time. And in there, you'd get to learn a little bit more about Terra's kind of lore, I guess, and also get to experience one of the killers in there. So that's other than that, there's not really much going on in that world. It's just kind of random stuff that I thought was cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember exploring that world like a long time ago, and I'd be searching for hours. I do remember that bunker. It was definitely before that event though. It was like some I want to say there was like a static TV at some point, if I remember correctly, or something. Um, I don't remember. I remember
Uh,
it being dark and there being a lot of like red lights. That's
yeah,
all I remember.
yeah,
It's been a while.
yeah,
um,
yeah. That was the bunker. And then actually, I guess we can talk about Smiley Ghost as well because that the world just kind of exists with like no context. I remember it was while I was working on. I think that was like one of the original prototypes that I made for my like synced AI setup. Because at the time I was kind of like trying a lot of different things to make my AI NPCs work properly. Smell Ghost was just kind of the result of one of those tests that I was like, it'd be really funny if I just uploaded this with no context. So I uploaded it with no context, and that's how Smile Ghost exists. That's the entire reason it's there. It just felt like
No, fair enough. It seems like a lot of world creators always have that one. It's just kind of a random upload. That's just kind of there because why not?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I was gonna say it's definitely a crazy thing when it comes to the progression over the years that you've been making worlds. And as you had kind of mentioned, I believe it was I think it was earlier February, where you had mentioned the whole stopping of terrors on the main game, and essentially you wanted to move on. So out of curiosity, if you can mention anything, like is there like a certain thing you're wanting to create, or is it kind of just up in the air right now?
Um, we have a couple things. The main reason I want to stop working on Terra's main branch is what I'm gonna call it, which is like the live version that's you can play right now, is because it's very, very old. Like a lot of the code I wrote for Terrors is like 2 to 3 years old, back when I knew a lot less. And as a result, it's so annoying to work with. And because of that, like it's kind of hard to upkeep it when things are changing on VRC's end. So eventually, like we're at the point where Terrors would be better off getting a complete rewrite and I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be the person to do that. So it's kind of, I'm just kind of leaving it to sit as it is now, and if someone wants to come make it better, they are free to. But the other reason is that we have we have actually a few upcoming projects related to terrors, and for those projects to work, I need terrors to be in a stable state where nothing's really changing. Because those two things that I'm doing are a sandbox and a kind of battle royale style game mode.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so those two things are going to be happening at some point in the future. The battle royale is currently what I've been working on. I kind of was working on it the entirety of January, and it's pretty complete. I'm not gonna lie, like it's getting there. And then the sandbox will just be like so you can mess around with the various NPCs and items and whatnot, because that was something that was requested a lot.
Oh, I believe it.
People.
Yeah, with how many content creators would play Terrors of Nowhere and want to like recreate shorts. I will say, okay, so I know I had reached out to you. This is kind of some lore for the general listeners. So I had reached out to you during HorrorCon because we were going to actually try to film some stuff with Terrors of Nowhere, which ultimately ended up not happening because of we had some people that were going to be our camera people. Apparently, their equipment had broke at the time. It was lots of stuff happened. Unfortunately, we couldn't. But I attempted to film a couple things. I never realized how difficult it would be to try to film while terrorists are chasing people.
Yeah,
it's probably one of the hardest things.
Getting footage for our like update trailer was definitely one of the hardest tasks I think I ever did. I had to we had like maybe 3 hours of recording, and only like 30 seconds of it was really good for anything because
because
of how much stuff was usually happening.
Yeah, because I remember you had back when like early Terrors days, like when it was still in beta. I remember you did have the debug menu that was accessible during the beta time. That was a lot easier time for that. Nowadays, no, it's impossible. Yeah. It's darn impossible. But I mean, it's an amazing thing. The sandbox, I think both the sandbox and the battle royale are going to be really interesting ideas. So, I guess kind of before we go too deep into that rabbit hole, because I am curious, but I don't want to spoil too much for them because we got to leave it surprise for them. But kind of to go back in the timeline a little bit, obviously we did have your friend Manti on the podcast during October. So I guess kind of to get your side of the story from things, like how did you guys kind of like meet and like work together and stuff?
It was probably we met on Gmod or Gary's mod, I guess. We met on the same server. We kind of knew each other for quite a long time. We didn't really talk too much until like around the time I started leaving Gary's mod. And that was mostly because I found VRChat at the time, so I kind of switched from Gary's mod to VRChat. And then I remember it was when I started working on Terrors of Nowhere was when I started talking to Manti again, because I thought like I wanted to include something from Slashco in it, and Manti offered up his monster, which became comedy or trollage in Slashco, and from there, we kind of started talking again because we had that common interest. When Manti started getting into world creation, that was when we really started connecting again. Because I was like because he was really good. Manti is really good at world creation. I will say that he's very good at what he does, and I was really excited when he started like working on his own game because like that was kind of what I wanted to see more on VRChat was more cool games like that. I guess more kind of unique games.
For sure. Well, that's cool. I because he had mentioned the Gary's mod a little bit, which I thought was it's one of those like VRChat's such a small world type situations. Is definitely an interesting thing. So I guess kind of going still in that same time era, for the most part. So what kind of gave you the idea for like Bus to Nowhere and Terrace of Nowhere? Like what started the idea process for those worlds?
Bus to Nowhere was based. Both of them are like based off like other things, obviously, because like nothing's original. But Bus to Nowhere was based off a Roblox game called Bus Simulator that I used to also play at the time. In fact, the bus in Bus to Nowhere is like very, very heavily inspired by the one in Bus Simulator with like like the 2 stories and the little compartments and all of that stuff. Um, so that's how that started. Funnily enough, this actually happened twice, but the original creator of Bus Simulator found my world and gave it a shout out, and I was like, that was really cool to have happen. And then for Terrace of Nowhere, initially I based it off of Slender Fortress because at the time that was kind of like my hyperfixation. So I wanted to make my goal with Terrace of Nowhere is to make a Slender Fortress style game where every round you had a different like monster or something after you. Because I really like the Slender Fortress boss packs, which are like little collections of extra like enemies and stuff. But then it was during that I found Midnight Horrors by Captain Spinks, and that game, as it turns out, was exactly what I was like aiming to create. So I started playing Midnight Horrors and got hyperfixated on that, and I was like, "Wow, this is a really good game." So then I started taking some kind of like inspiration, some notes for how Midnight Horrors functioned, and started kind of moving my world into less of a slower stealth kind of horror thing into something way more chaotic because Midnight Horrors is a very chaotic game and I really really liked that aspect of it. um I had something else I wanted to say but I forgot, so
It's all good. We can always come back. Well, that's really cool though. That like, you know, obviously, yeah, nothing for the most part. There's not a lot of originality. There's always something came from something. So that's really cool that like you got some shout outs from like, the original creator of Bus Simulator, and that
yeah.
is really cool.
Oh right. Yeah,
Go ahead.
it was that Captain Sphinx also like took note of Terrors of Nowhere and like said good job, and that was also really like I also got really excited at that. We actually, some things in Terrors are going to be in their new game. Actually, it's going to be in their new game, Darkest Hour,
Oh
which is
wow,
like really really cool because I didn't expect that to happen.
that's what's up. Um, that's cool that you're getting to kind of get some recognition outside of VRChat. Um, because obviously with VRChat being at least okay, this is gonna sound really wonky, but like with VRChat is its own niche, right? Like you have your other games, like you have like Roblox players, you have Rec Room, you have all sorts of games have their own bases. With VRChat being its own niche, it's not easy to say the least when it comes to getting outside of like the VRChat sphere, so to speak. Like yeah, you have like
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
your events doing
definitely.
yeah, like you have your events doing stuff that are more IRL focused. Between I guess I don't want to call it mixed reality because you're still using VR and IRL, like when they do like the whole portals thing with like MagFest and like some of the other big events around the world. So kind of one of the questions I want to ask going into this topic a little bit. So with these projects, like especially with Terrors of Nowhere, has there ever been any consideration for like a separate or like a standalone game outside of VRChat?
We've definitely talked about it a few times, but ultimately we've decided that we're going to be sticking with VRChat. Um, for mainly the sole reason of none of us want to do netcode at all. Like that is honestly the one thing that none of us want to touch because like I'm scared of netcode. Has done research on netcode and knows how to do it, but we ultimately don't really want to deal with it. So that's why we're mostly sticking to VRChat for most of our stuff. Um, I have considered because I do make like non-VR Unity games sometimes. I have like thought about making or releasing some of those to the public, just to like if you're interested, like
I mean,
Free
if you ever
game,
do release them, feel
whatever.
free to send the links. I'll throw them in the description, even if it's like months from now. I'll throw them in the description. So you might want to come back a couple months later and check the description. There might be some more links there. Um, but yeah, no, I mean that's cool. I was always curious, because obviously, especially with terrors, like it is a game, like that could easily be done outside of VR per se. But fair enough. Netcode, yeah, I've had some friends of mine talk about how scary netcode can be, and I don't blame them. I don't blame y'all, especially. So I guess kind of talking about these projects, because obviously a lot of work had gone into it over the years, and um, lots and lots of Unity issues. I would assume, especially with the different Unity changes and whatnot. So kind of to go into that,
Yeah.
a little bit. So when it came to these projects, what were some of the challenges when developing these projects?
Let me say. I'm gonna say it was probably mostly keeping things like keeping the what's the wording I want to use here? Keeping the hype down is honestly the hardest part about developing anything, because I remember Terrace of Nowhere had so much like hype when it was coming, like going to release, and managing that was kind of nightmarish. Like I was trying, because when I started working on Terrace of Nowhere, I kept it like underground because I didn't want nobody to know about it until it was like in a playable state. And then one of the test builds, really early ones, got leaked because someone shared it. And then like there were a bunch of people just kind of playing it. And that kind of became an issue because like I had not said anything about this to anyone. Like my patrons didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it. And there were like 200 people in my private test build playing it. So yeah, that's kind of always been like a huge difficulty. The developing itself never really was too difficult because I just kind of got it to work, and it worked for most of the time. That was kind of my mindset back in the day, was if it worked, it's thumbs up good. Like it worked good enough. Um yeah, other than that, there hasn't really been any other struggles other than just like general keeping things underground where it's supposed to be, keeping things not getting like leaked or whatever. That's mostly been the huge issue with working on Terrace for the entire time I've been making it.
No, fair. Yeah, because there was a lot of builds when it came to terrors. I still remember one of the, oh gosh, I don't remember which build it was, to be honest, because there was quite a few. But I remember specifically spawning on the bus, and you'd have this like flat ground with all these squares and this like little menu over on the side. I do remember that one very
Yeah.
well. Um,
Yeah,
but
that's one of the most like iconic ones, I think, is the green bus with the cookie buttons and the merchant on the second floor. That's probably like that was like that green bus was originally supposed to be the lobby for Terrors of Nowhere. Before we swapped it to the court.
yeah, so out of curiosity, like what made you want to do that change?
It was because I honestly couldn't figure out how to make the green bus work in a way I wanted it to work. Because the original intention was that the green bus would drop you off at a map, and then you'd get off and then survive. That was our original intention for it. But I couldn't figure out at the time how to make that work in a way that didn't cause it caused more problems than it was worth getting it to work. Which is why I opted into the court solution where everyone's just in a court now. Because the original idea was like we were on the run from the overseer, uh, using the green bus to get away from it. So instead, I just kind of skipped to the end where the overseer got you,
Oh,
and that
fair.
kind of worked out, I guess.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's really cool that you went from, y granted, of course, not every idea is gonna have its, perfect, flawlessness. So I mean, it's always good to have some type of backup plan. And I mean, I quite frankly, I think the court now, especially now, like people love the openness of it compared to like the bus. Um, it's a lot less compact, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Um,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hello, everyone. Real quick, just want to pause the episode right here. I want to thank you all so much for the massive amount of support. We have one mega sponsor from Lieutenant Shadow. We also do have some supporters as well from Teal, Spooky Ghost Boo, and Fax Machine. Thank you all so much for all the amazing support. If you haven't heard already, we also do have a merch store as well, where you can get all the Noved Notes apparel, all the sorts of stuff. It'll be down at the very bottom of the description, so make sure to go check that out. I do want to thank you so much for watching this far. If you are watching and enjoying what you're seeing, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It does help me out. We are trying to get to 1,000 by the end of 2025. But with that, let's get back into the episode. Woo! Well, that's cool. So I guess kind of, when it comes to like the world again, um, I guess this is kind of a two-part question. So I guess the first part being, so do you use like Udon world prefabs? And if so, like which ones do you find the most useful?
For Bus to Nowhere, I used a lot because I was kind of still new. I didn't know too much. I know one of the ones that like I use in most of my worlds now is I forget who made it. I want to say starts with a V or something, but it's the third person one that we have.
Mm.
I can like I can get you a link later, but that one is primarily one of the ones that I use everywhere just because of how nice it is to have. Especially like I know a lot of people on desktop like love it, and I know a lot of people that go to terrors try to third person in worlds that don't have it because it's
Yeah.
just really nice and like it's so useful to have. Um, the other one I know Bus had was a music player. I don't remember who made it. I don't remember who made a lot of the old Bus stuff. Um, that one, the music player was a prefab that was extremely useful. That one actually taught me quite a bit on string loading, which is nice. I definitely learned off of these prefabs. Like I looked at them. Oh, another one that Udon airtime. That is another prefab that is super prevalent in most of my worlds because I just love the movement and it feels like a much better version of VRChat's like player control. Terrors uses that. Bust uses that. Like every world I've done uses that. Terrors uses like a really modified version of it that I made for Terrors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then when I started doing Terrors, I stopped like including a lot of prefabs because I wanted to start I wanted to rebuild a lot of them myself to kind of teach myself how to do it. The only ones that I think Terror really uses are Udon Airtime, which I edited a lot, and third person. I do know the UI in Terror is like the little wrist HUD that you have is the code for managing the position of it is from a swimming prefab, actually, I believe. Um, and I do know that it's credited in World on like there's a little credit board that has like additional help, and I know I have all the
Well, we'll
prefab
put them
creators there.
screenshots on the screen.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about being a visual podcast. We'll just throw it up on the screen if we don't remember. um,
That's good. Thank God.
but no, that's what's up. I mean, it's cool to kind of know that you use, quite a decent handful of like standard Udon prefabs to make your stuff. Um, so I guess kind of when it comes to making stuff, because obviously with both projects, it's gonna be a lot of tangenting between Bust to Nowhere and Tears of Nowhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I guess kind of one of the things I wanted to ask, because obviously with Terrors, there's oh god, I couldn't even remember the exact number. It's changed so many times. I was like, but with how many entities you do have all across the board, um, what was one of the ones that was like the most struggle to get to work when it came to implementing it?
Oh, that's a hard one. It really depends on the time period because there has been like the amount of experience I've accumulated making a lot of them now super easy. I wanted damn, that's a really good one. I'm not really sure who really. I know the one that took the longest to make was Fusion Pilot because at the time I didn't know how to create I didn't have a system for projectiles at all. So as a result, I had to hand animate all of Fusion Pilot's bullets off of Fusion Pilot, which is that took a while. Um, who took the most? Yeah, Fusion Pilot took the most time. I don't know I don't know what I struggled with the most. I can't think of one that I like. Maybe Psychosis, like the Mystic Moon boss. That might have been the one that I struggled with the most, just because that one took so long. Because for every form I made for it, I had to reanimate the killer in that form. So it had its own set of idle, walking, attacking animations for pretty much every single killer it can turn into. And getting that to work was kind of insane at the time.
No, fair. I would say definitely it's definitely crazy what you've done when it comes to the moons, like the Mystic Moon, Twilight, et cetera, et cetera. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of game worlds that implement regular fights in air quotes, of course, and then boss
Yeah.
fights. Um, or I guess you could call them boss fights, special event fights. I guess you could call it realistically.
They're boss moons is usually what I call them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess kind of on the opposite side of opposite side of this topic then. So what was the most simplest entity you've put in? Because obviously there's some goofy ones in there. I will admit.
Yeah, there's some really it hinges on either. No, it's definitely Tinky Winky. I was gonna say Immortal Snail, but Immortal Snail actually has some extra stuff going on with it. Tinky Winky was definitely the most low effort one, and I think I added it just because it would take 5 minutes. I feel like that's why it's in there. Because when I was I think hold on, I need to remember. Tinky Winky was in the October update, so they're added pretty early on if I remember correctly. But that October update has a lot of lore behind it. But yeah, Tinky Winky was definitely the most simple one because it just doesn't have any animations, just moves at you, screams.
Yeah, I will say that's always one I have to turn the volume down on, man. Because I played that game when Sunday Tubbies first came out, I played that quite a lot back in the day. And that scream is just ingrained into my temporal lobe. And anytime I hear it, I'm like, nope, gotta turn this off. It can be obnoxious sometimes. So I guess kind of because obviously there's so many entities. We could literally tangent for hours on entities alone.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't want to go too far into that. Maybe if you ever come back, we could talk more about entity specifics. But I do want to kind of bring up a few of them. So obviously you have I don't know if you call them shitpost ones, but I personally do because they're
that's a good word for them.
So because obviously one of the ones and funny enough there's one in particular that I know a lot of people are I don't want to say confused because they may not just know the lore because as most VRChat players don't read when there's literally a description provided. So the Terror of Nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So
I honestly thought you were gonna bring up Retep, but that one,
that one too. That one was on the list, but I was gonna.
Yeah, Terror of Nowhere. Wait, I funnily enough, that character that so Terror of Nowhere was a thing in Bus to Nowhere. It's in a secret area called the Have Dimension, which is also a map in Terrors of Nowhere. Um, the Terror of Nowhere was at the time like it was kind of an old joke back in the day, where I said that like thing in the Have Dimension had some super crazy lore and it was super important to the story, and you'd find out later. And that's kind of why Terror of Nowhere exists, because like I thought it'd be funny to bring that back for people that have no idea about it, because Bus to Nowhere is a lot less. Both more people have played Terrors than Bus, but my idea was that like if I included it in Terrors of Nowhere, no one would really understand it except for a lot of the older people that played Bus and knew about the Have Dimension and that thing. Um, yeah. I remember there was at one point. I also updated it with like giving it the stupid tongue that it like sometimes sticks out. It did not have that originally. I added that like later because I thought that would be really funny. Yeah, that thing. That thing. I can't really say why we made it. Like I gave it like this. I gave it like cry of fear sounds. Like I don't really know why I did that. I just thought it'd be funny.
Because I remember, if I remember correctly, it stemmed from a whole Discord thing, if I remember correctly, of just like the little emotes, if I remember
Right.
correctly.
That was what it was. Yeah. I did like eyes, lips, eyes, and that became. That is what it was. Yeah.
Look
Yeah,
at
I think it was that, and that reminded me of it, and then I added it.
when there's a see that clip alone, that's getting clipped. I'm 100% clipping. when the podcaster knows more about the entity than the developer.
Yeah,
that's
like,
getting clipped.
I do not remember a lot of reasons why things in Terrors of Nowhere are the way they are. Like, I'm very scatterbrained when it comes to that. Like, often often I'll just be wrong, and it's really funny. Like,
I mean, that's fair though, because I mean, with how many there are, not to mention like all the different events that can happen with like unbounds and bloodbath and everything else, it piles up. I'm surprised that like you managed to fit all of this into one VRChat world, because that's not an easy process, to say the least.
yeah, just barely. It's definitely at a point where I can't really add any more to it though. As a result, it's definitely like kind of at its ceiling of content, I think.
Yeah. So so kind of to go back into the into some of the goofy entities. So you did mention Retap, so I think we'll go to that one first before I bring up the third one I wanted to bring up. So obviously,
Right.
obviously, there's some type of. I feel like there's some type of hidden lore as to why it's not just the name of the character. So, I mean, obviously, it is it is Peter Griffin. That's the whole bit. But like, so why?
Yeah, so
what's the reasoning behind it?
we we wanted, so it was kind of a test server joke, but we were talking about adding Peter Griffin, and there's this bit in Family Guy where Peter like loses his arm, and then his like arm grows into like an evil clone of himself, and it's called Retep.
That's right.
And that's where that comes from. And then and then we are like, okay, how is Retep gonna kill people? Let's give him a chainsaw. So I give him a chainsaw, and then that's how he became the way he is now. At many points during the October update, I'm going to call it Joyous because that's what we called it internally. During Joyous update, we were considering removing Retep. He was kind of just placeholder filler, but we never actually got around to removing him because we kind of had this like love-hate with him. We kind of grew attached to him, I guess is a good way of putting it. We didn't really want to remove him because like it was just such a dumb entity, and we'd be sad if it was gone.
I mean,
it's very memorable.
That's fair. It's there's some goofy ones, man. Like I know we mentioned like only two, but like the list can go on and on and on and on. So okay, one of them I have to mention because it is a special event one. I can't remember the exact name of the actual entity itself, but all I know it's literally you have to run for your life from this giant meatball.
Oh, that's the Meatball Man. That's his name.
Yeah.
Events called Run. Yeah, that one's been in game for a very long time. I remember that one was like added super super early on. Um, I believe Meatball Man originates from a series called Little Runmo. It's like one of the there's like a big scene where the little guy has to like run all the way across this huge like bridge, while in the background there's this big meatball man that slowly comes towards him. And like at the end of the bridge is like a bunch of like lives or something, and he wants to get to them, but like midway through, the meatball man's too close, so he like chickens out and runs back. um, so we added that. I can't really say why. I don't really know why. That was added super early, so I don't remember my exact reasoning. I think I just thought it'd be funny.
No, that's fair. And obviously, with how long the game's been out, like, you just kind of forget why it's there. It's just there. You just kind of let it roll.
Yeah, it just kind of is. Like,
Yeah. So, ironically enough, because one of the ones I did want to bring up, because just for sheer interest, because I think Terra's was the first world I had actually seen this done. Was actually the mirror entity, where it's a properly animated mirror that literally runs and chases you around.
yeah.
So because literally, which also nice touch by the way with the nightmare index, literally just making that into a mirror. I thought that was absolutely clever.
Yeah, yeah.
So what made you? I have to know the lore behind the what made you want to add a killable, like a killer mirror, essentially.
We wanted at the time we wanted some VRChat related entity because at the time we had like none of that. There was no entity that related to VRChat itself. And we were like trying to scheme what it could be. Maybe it was like one of the test robots, which did become a terror, or like some old like some prefab that's like really popular. We make something based off that. Um, and then we like I thought about what if it was just a mirror that chases you, and there's actually some additional lore behind a mirror. The mirror that chases you is supposed to be the same mirror that's in Bus to Nowhere's bus, as there is a like a mirror in Bus to Nowhere that it kind of it's just a mirror. Like we made it canon that it's the same mirror because I don't know. We just thought it would be funny.
Oh, fair. It's the goofy things that I think make people love the game so much. Um, because obviously you can run from the same entity over and over and over again. And some people will think it gets old, but some people will play with other people, and it's a whole different experience. Um, it's just definitely a crazy thing. When it comes to all that, so I guess kind of to move on from the entity side of things, because like I said, there's a lot we could literally tangent on this for hours on end. We're not gonna do that. Sorry if that's what you were looking for with this episode. I'm sorry, this is not the episode you're looking for. um but it's definitely a cool thing when it comes to all that, because obviously each entity has its own model, its own animations. um
hmm
so I guess kind of in a general scope of things, it doesn't have to be the exact number, because obviously you've been working on this world for what, a year ish, 2 ish. I believe it's a year.
About 2, 3 now. Because I was working on it a year before it came out, so it's like 2, 3 years now.
Right. So I guess kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask, ballpark number if possible, because I don't know if you know the exact number on hand, but how many hours specifically do you think you've spent into Terrors of Nowhere?
Oh, that's a oh god. Well,
I said
I'm
ballpark.
at about like 9,400 hours in VRChat now. So I probably started working on Terrors of Nowhere like 2,000 hours in. So I will say like half of that. So maybe like 3,000 hours, maybe. That seems like
Yeah.
a good estimate, maybe on how many hours it probably was that I was working on Terrors for that time.
That's fair. Um, well, I mean, that's really cool that, like, granted, that's 2,000 hours. Yeah, that's about, like, what? I don't know math. That's a lot of days.
Yeah, I
But,
don't know either. I just know
um,
it's it's a while.
fair. Well, I guess kind of the same question, but for Bus to Nowhere. So, roughly about, like, how many hours did Bus to Nowhere take to get going?
Oh, wait. Okay. Well, initial Bus to Nowhere took. Well, I did the first release of Bus to Nowhere in like a month. Like that it was a really small world back then, and then I just kind of got updates like every month or just two. I didn't work too often on it. Like definitely, I worked less on it than I do on Terrors. Um, but I kept updating it for like a year or so. So I'm not sure how many hours, but like I kind of took like I'd work on it for like maybe 2 weeks or something, and then take like a month break every time I did an update for Bus to Nowhere.
No, fair enough. It's definitely, first of all, kudos for putting the dedication and hours into making these worlds, because I feel like a lot of world creators um don't quite grasp how much. Okay, this is gonna sound a little bit weird, but I mean well by saying this. Like, they'll see the world, right, and they might not truly understand how much effort and passion goes into this, because obviously, there's been a few times where you would say, like, yeah, I don't want to work on this anymore, and ultimately, because of the community, you keep going and you keep getting pushed, to keep wanting to keep doing it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um so I guess kind of one of the questions in that regard, because obviously the community, the Torrent community kind of dates back. Um I that was actually really quick before I move on to that question, because I know it used to be. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did it used to be Rift Gardens at a point? Question mark. Or am I getting communities
Um,
mixed up?
it Our group is called Rift Gardens, but the Discord server itself is called Torin.
That's what it is.
I was thinking of rebranding to. I'm probably gonna rebrand to Rift Gardens at some point because that is what our official group's name is. But yeah, Torin or Rift Gardens works either.
Fair enough. Kind of to go back into kind of more modern day when it comes to things, because obviously, as we're recording this on February 26th, you just put another update out early this morning. um
Yeah.
so I guess kind of one of the questions I want to ask, um at the end of the day, do you really think there will be a point, realistically, where it'll stop being updated? Or do you think it'll keep going? Even if it's small little
It
things.
will. There'll definitely be a point where I stop touching it because there's actually a few reasons. One, because if I update something on the main branch, I have to update it on the branch that has Battle Royale Sandbox on it, so that's like double work. And the other thing is that working on Terrors takes a extremely long time because of the amount of stuff in it that I have to worry about when editing anything in it, and it's really just really time consuming. So there will be a point where I probably just stop touching it unless it's to fix like a super big issue that was like caused by either VRChat update or some other thing was found that I have to fix, or as the game becomes like borderline unplayable. That's kind of like my rule, is that I probably won't go back to it unless something is super super broken.
That's fair. Um, because obviously, like you had mentioned with Sandbox and the Battle Royale, obviously there's going to be more projects in the works. So obviously it's not the end by any means, but you got to have a baseline to
Oh,
where it's
definitely
like,
not.
where it's like, okay, we're moving on finally.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
It's like it's end of service, I guess, is what a good word is for a good phrase for terrors. It's like nobody's really touching it anymore. We'll touch it if we have to, but we're gonna do other things now.
so I know you probably get this question a lot. So I'm sorry for bringing this question up. Because obviously, when you release Terrors, um, VRChat wasn't where it is now. So obviously one of the topics I want to bring up is obviously if you were at some point wanting to redo terrors, would there be persistence?
Definitely, yeah. Like, definitely. Like, oh my goodness. I'm a little peeved that Persistence took so long to come out because, like, we were waiting on that stuff for so long. We're like, yeah, I really wish we had that earlier, but it is what it is. We definitely would use persistence though, and we're gonna use persistence for like future stuff, like Battle Royale is gonna have persistence in it. Same with like other things that we're doing.
No, fair. I know you've probably gotten that question 1,000 times, but it's definitely because I remember when you first started working on when on terror specifically, and it wasn't quite in the radar yet. Like it was rumored, but it wasn't like even remotely to where it is now. Um, but yeah, it's kind of a goofy thing. It's either it's either you're lucky enough to start working on something and then the features kind of come as you're making it, or you make something and then it comes out like shortly after. There's no in between.
I'm gonna be honest. We have another project called LCVN that we've been working on, and for that exact reason, we've shelved it until VRChat has their like new coding language and stuff out, because that's gonna have more than Udon.
Oh yeah,
And we're
the
just not.
Soba,
We're
I
just like
believe, right?
completely not. Yeah, it is Soba. We're just completely not touching it until Soba is with us because we really don't trust after what happened with persistence with like it's coming soon guys and then it takes a year. um yeah,
Yeah, definitely
that is a
definitely an interesting thing when it comes to timing per se. It's always something. Um but yeah, no, it's definitely a crazy thing. So obviously kind of to for once, kind of to go off topic of the projects themselves, but kind of more into the community side of things. Because obviously, with Bus to Nowhere and Terrors of Nowhere, it's kind of grown this, pretty large community. Um, Post editor will post a screenshot of the group number just for example. But it's like it's grown quite a bit, since its little humble beginnings. Before like Bus to Nowhere popped off, and then Terrors of Nowhere popped off. Um, so I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask, kind of going from the beginning of like the community, what is it like from like back then till now? What was like the experience of growing the community?
it was kind of like it just kind of happened. I didn't really feel like I had any control over the growth. It just kind of like initially our Discord server was like it was restricted to like patrons only, so it was like a patron server, and then eventually we opened it up to the public once word of terrors kind of got out. There was a group created for Terrors of Nowhere back in its like infancy, pre-release days. I didn't actually make that group, but it now serves as kind of the official server or official group. It does have a Discord server as well, which serves as like the group's like official Discord. I don't run any of it, which is like a thumbs up because I don't really want to do that. I don't really like running things. Amazingly enough, I'm kind of like a what is it? An isolated person, I guess, when it comes to that kind of things. I don't really like being a center of attention. So it was kind of definitely some adjusting was needed to when I started to kind of grow pretty big. Definitely scary. Yeah, I was a little scared when the numbers kind of kept going up.
No, that's fair. Um, yeah, because obviously nobody. I feel like this goes with a lot of like creators in general. When it comes to like ones that grow out of nowhere, right? The pun was not intended. I swear to God, that pun was not intended. Um, But the point still stands, right? It happens out of the blue, and you just don't expect that, right? Like, obviously, both maps, phenomenal maps, like, but nobody expects to grow as big as they do until after it happens. Um, it's kind of a crazy thing to say the least, because before we started recording, you were talking about how like getting recognized in Publix, based off creations and whatnot, and it's kind of one of those things like nobody expects that to happen, right? Like nobody
Yeah, I
expects to get
definitely
recognized
like.
by random people.
Like it's really weird when people like I'll be in some other game world because I do play like other game worlds because I like exploring, and then someone will point me out and say, "Oh my God, that's the guy that made Tears of Nowhere," and I'll be like, "Hello," and it's kind of a funny. It's usually like it's nice interactions usually most of the time. It's just kind of like interesting that that can happen at all to me because I never. It feels like such a weird thing to happen getting recognized in public.
No, fair. I mean, with how popular the worlds are, granted, we are a now like Quest Viveport dominated platform compared to PC VR, but at the same time, it's like there's still enough PC players out there. I mean, it has what 2 million views now, or almost 3 million for Tears alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's crazy to say the least that it's one of the most highest played maps when it comes to like the modern day VRChat. Um, so I guess it makes sense. I guess if you really think about it, it makes sense. But regardless, you don't expect that, right? Like nobody expects to get
Yeah,
recognized in public.
like
Um,
I mainly didn't expect it to blow up as much as it did, or become as much as it did now, because it kind of like it's kind of a self-fulfilling cycle. I'd get support, I'd want to put more in because of the support, and I'd get more support, and then I'd want to put more in, and that's kind of how it became so big. Because I remember Terra's itself was supposed to just be like a kind of a proof of concept prototype. I didn't really want to take it anywhere. I just kind of wanted to make it. Originally, we were going to have only 30 entities and like 8 maps. Wow, those are some small numbers compared to now. But like, I didn't really want to be in the position I am now, but I'm here, so I'm just making the most of it.
you know what? Fair though. I mean, it makes
Like,
sense looking back.
like I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely enjoying the position I'm in now. I like seeing how far we've come. I think it's really cool how far we've come.
No, for sure. So I guess kind of to go back a little bit, because obviously with Bus and Terrors, you do also, this is going to go back to the entity side, but this is mainly specific regarding your creations. So obviously, you have From Bus to Nowhere, you have like Carol, you have the Dev Bites. So
Hmm.
out of curiosity, what kind of inspired these characters and like these creations?
Uh, I made a lot of the older Bus to Nowhere like OCs, I guess is the word I'm going to use for them. I made a lot of those kinds of characters like a long time ago. Even Terrors has a lot of like my super old characters in it, like Fusion Pilot and them. I made those like way long ago, like 2020, 2019, back when I was like playing Gary's mod with Manti. Funnily enough, that's he knows a lot about them. He's kind of like he knows a lot about a lot of my older stuff.
Hi,
But
Manti.
um,
You gotta pull the Uno reverse because he said hi beyond. If you ever see this, you gotta pull the Uno
oh
reverse.
hi, hi Manti, tell the world. um, but yeah, a lot of my super older characters are I just kind of made back in the Gmod days because of like there was a lot of emphasis on making characters, I guess, back in that community, and I just kind of like I made a lot of characters because of that. Carol was kind of like my old like I guess main persona online. Like it was kind of like my character, I guess, my person. And then yeah, I mean yeah, they're mostly just old characters that I made, and then I kept reusing because I like reusing them.
No, fair. It's always good to have characters that are multiple use. Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy, like all the things. Man, there's hours upon hours of content when it comes to both Bus and Tears of Nowhere. Um, like I guess kind of one of the things I wanted to ask, because obviously with Bus to Nowhere specifically, there's so many different biomes that you can explore, different events. So I guess one of the questions in that regard, what kind of made you choose like the biomes that you chose for Bust to Nowhere? What and like the events, like what kind of inspired some of them? Just for example.
Um, a lot of the initial biomes I added were just kind of like tests because when I was making Bus to Nowhere, I was also still learning how to code because I didn't know how to program in Udon. So a lot of the older things were me just learning. I know probably one of the first ones that I did was a biome called Neon Towers, which is like the pink tower biome. I'm pretty sure it's also in Terrace. But that biome was the first one that was truly unique in Bus to Nowhere. And I made it just because I don't really know why I made it. But I made it because it looked pretty. Um, And then, yeah, a lot of the biomes in Busted Nowhere are just kind of based off like random places, I guess, that could exist. Like there's biomes like hills, which is just grass but with hills. There's like a snowy version of it, which is the hills biome but snowy. Um, what else is there? There's like the forest, which is like a kind of foggy foresty area. It's also where the guidance first kind of made its appearance in our worlds. Um, and then, yeah, we just kind of like, I kind of just winged it with a lot of the biomes. They're like the city biomes, which are just like blocks with the city like texture on them. And then there's like a couple different colors. There's like a blue city, there's a golden city, there's like a red city sometimes. There's an abandoned one that's like all ruined and decrepit. Yeah, we kind of like, I think what I kind of did was I made a bunch of like initial biomes and I started making versions of those biomes. Like when I made forest, there ended up being a snowy forest and then a mushroom forest. And that's kind of how all the biomes in Bus got made.
No, fair enough. I mean that's really cool. It's really cool that you fit so many into one world without, because realistically, yeah, you have like the transitional like tunnels and everything else, but for the most part, practically it's seamless. It's there's no like hard lag between biomes. It's pretty straightforward. So I guess one of the questions in that regard, how difficult was it to kind of pull that off?
Not really. I'm gonna be honest, because a lot of when I was making Bus, there's a kind of a secret to the biome transitions, and that's that the biomes for every player aren't actually in the same position as each other. So like if the bus is stopped, someone sees a tree there, it might be like over here for someone else or some other position.
Oh.
That's kind of the secret to how biomes look so seamless. It's because it's all calculated locally, which is way easier than networking it. Um,
Huh.
Kind of on a similar. Actually, I'll talk about that later.
Fair. Well, no, no, that's really cool though. I didn't know that it was all locally done. That's a really cool thing. I did one of those like the more you know type things. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, feel free to go ahead and like if you want to explain that, I'm all ears.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that gets like brought up because we're actually like remaking Bus to Nowhere entirely from scratch because it's kind of like the same as the Terra situation where if we're gonna do anything with Bus, it's going to be remake it because of how old Bus is. And one of the things that we actually did in the new Bus is we made it so that instead of it being local, it is properly synced for every player. So every player will see every biome in the same position, and it's still as smooth as old Bus as well. Um, and that's us. Me being able to do that is honestly just a result of me being better at coding than I was like 3 years ago. So that's kind of definitely it's definitely like it shows how far it's come. Honestly, I learned a lot in the past like 3 years.
Oh, fair enough. So I guess kind of to go into that just a little bit. Um, so when it comes to the remaster, is it going to be, more one to one, or is there going to be like new additions when it comes to the remastered version?
It's definitely gonna be like more of a remaster. It's gonna be a complete like remake, revamp, reimagining of Bus One. Because Bus One was kind of all over the place, mostly because I was still learning and I was seeing what I could do and what I couldn't do, and there wasn't really too much like of a focus on what it was going to be. Bus Two is way more expansive. It's planned to be way more expansive than Bus One. It's planned to have way more things to do. We're taking a lot of the old ideas from Bus One. Like everything in Bus One is going to be in Bus Two, but like different, reimagined or whatever. And it's gonna be overall a way more polished experience than Bus One. One of the like major highlights is that for Bus Two, I'm making a lot of the new systems very modular, so it's really easy to add new things without it like taking up additional worlds. Like it's not as heavy on the world to add new things, and that's just I can do that because I'm just better at coding than I was 3 years ago. And because of that, like right now in its current state, like Bus 2 has like 40, 50 biomes, and that's like more than Bus 1 already, and it's not even like it's barely complete. And we already have like almost like 2 times the amount of like we're getting to 2 times the amount of biomes that were in Bus 1.
Damn.
There's a lot more emphasis on like it's much more of like a hangout kind of. It's like a I don't know what I want to call it. It's like Bus One but better. That's honestly the best way of putting it. It's Bus One but like way more polished of an experience.
Oh, that's fair. Well, that's what's up. That's crazy what you guys are coming up with. When it comes to the newer stuff, as well as a or reimagined version of Bust to Nowhere One. Um, well, that's what's up, man. Definitely glad to hear that there's more projects in the works. Because obviously, it's with how long Terrace has been out, um, I was always wondering if there's anything else in store from you and your team. Um, that's what's up, man. I guess kind of to because we've been going at this for a while now. But I do want to
Yeah.
I do kind of want to touch base um on a few things that have happened more recently, because obviously you did exhibit at Project HorrorCon 2024. So
Yeah.
I guess kind of, because that was, I believe that was that your first experience like doing a like convention type?
It was, yeah. That was my first time doing anything like that.
So out of curiosity, what was like your, because obviously with the worlds you make, you're used to the worlds, but like what was from your point of view? What was kind of that experience from your point of view?
It was really cool. We ourselves didn't have too much to do with it because it was more Senator Cobra setting it all up for us because they just wanted to. They thought it'd be cool. I agreed. I thought it was cool. We kind of worked together. I kind of helped him. I told him like, yeah, I gave him feedback, and he kind of worked with it. I know Manti was also there, I believe, and yeah, it was a cool experience. I think. Um, Definitely would love to do more things like that in the future. I know at the time, I think that was like after the update came out, so we were really tired at that point in time. Um, yeah, but yeah, I'd definitely like to do more like convention kind of things.
No, fair. And that is a perfect segue Take it away, Lion and past Noved.
Oh, well, the last time I saw you here, Noved, was October.
Yeah, absolutely. That ghost ship was definitely something, to say the least. But we're here now.
Here to tell you something amazing. Right now, PJKT application is open until May 12th. So if you go right down the description, which will give you to a Discord, discord.gg/PJKT, you'll have all the information you need to sign up for your community, your creators. We're open to communities, creators, and people are building things, and content creators as well. Everything is right down in the Discord, right for you. What else do we have here? What is PJKT, Noved?
Well, PJKT is a virtual convention here in VRChat that holds many different types of events within Project Fest, from film showcases with Project Lens, from developer talks with Project Inc., as well as many live performances and many different events held by the community through our events applications forums as well. It'll also be down in that Discord, discord.gg/PJKT. So, of course, make sure to go check it out.
Most definitely. And PJKT this year is going to be June 27th through July 7th. So mark it down in your calendars. We'd love to see you there. See you this summer, folks.
Sorry, I had to do that.
Yeah. No problem.
I mean, there's gonna probably be at least 2 mid rolls on this episode, so I'm gonna do one for PJKT because I do have a PJKT mid roll. But yeah, as you probably guys just saw from that mid roll, Project Community Project Fest 2025 signups are still live up until May. So make sure to go over to the PJKT Discord. If you're a community or creator who wants to showcase their amazing communities or worlds, avatars, whatever the case may be, go apply. Be a part of one of the biggest events in VRChat and showcase what this community is all about when it comes to VRChat. Anyways, but which we need to. I'm gonna send you the application form. By the way, like I know you're at HorrorCon, so I mean,
yeah, all right, definitely.
I'll get you. We'll can't guarantee anything, but at least get you through the application process so you can get an application in. So the community relations team can get your application. But it's definitely a crazy thing when it comes to everything, because now, like, kind of going more forward into where we are now, because obviously you had won this year's VRCA for Game and Puzzle World. And to be fair, I and a lot of the PJKT staff, because we held our own watch party instance, I figured you were gonna either take one of the other. Because it was really close decision for some of them. A lot of the categories, like, and I've mentioned this on a few other episodes, some of the categories were stacked. Like horror experience, I couldn't choose between horror experience. I was like, man, because I'm friends with you, I'm friends with Nancy. Like I've met Cripsy once or twice. I'm like, man, this all of them are great. Like the horror category was phenomenal.
I was definitely rooting for Manti for that.
Yeah, like a lot of us believed that you were going to win one of the 2 categories when it came to Terrors of Nowhere. We just didn't know which one because both categories were pretty stacked. We're like, yeah. So I guess now that has all said and done and passed, like what are kind of because obviously with the winning scripts, they were recorded, obviously. I'll say PJKTs will never see the live day. Because me and the media director did those, and we didn't win anything, but it's fine, there's always next year. But yeah, I guess kind of to go into that just a little bit before we end things off, like what was the sensation when you had found out you had won?
I think I was just waking up when I found out I won. It was kind of like a shock to find out that I won something. I actually heard it from who did I hear it from? I heard it from someone else first, and it kind of took me a moment to register what they were, because they just said congratulations in like all capitals, and I was like, what could they be talking about? And then it kind of hit me like a truck that was happening like right there, right now. So, and then I go look, and then they're playing the clip that I recorded, and I'm like, I'm so happy. And I start like, I ping like all the devs, I'm like, guys, we won. And yeah, it was a really exciting day, I think, actually. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We actually for the horror one, since they were pre-recorded, our clip like was gonna be, we had this little bit with Manti planned where if I won the horror one in my clip, he would like be breaking down my door trying to like get the award from me. And, we didn't get to record it sadly, but like that was the plan for it because like I would have felt so bad if I won that because like I don't know. I don't feel like Terrors of Nowhere really defines as much. I mean, it's called Terrors of Nowhere. But like it feels more like a chaotic game than a full horror game to me. I would have felt so bad if I won it, honestly. But I am really happy that I did win Game and Puzzle though. That was kind of awesome. When they gave me the little trophy, because they send you a trophy for it. I actually put it in Terrors as like an item that I can use and like use as a stun weapon to beat Terrors with. So that was cool. That was fun. Yeah, I like now that it's done. Like that was definitely one of the highlights of this year so far. I think was that happening. 'Cause I honestly didn't expect to like win anything.
No, fair enough. I mean, congratulations again on winning. I mean, it it was a very stacked category across the board, both for the horror and the game and puzzle, at least in my opinion. Um, Overall, well done though. Congratulations. But well, that's what's up, man. Beyond, dude, thank you so much for coming on, and I know we're probably, I don't know. We've had to start and stop recording probably about 4 times now because Steam Link, of course, decides to mess up every now and then. Virtual Desktop, if you ever want to, knock on wood, if you ever want to like sponsor the podcast, I'd appreciate it. Kidding, of course, but in all seriousness, no, Beyond, dude, thank you for coming on. Hopefully you had as much fun as I did because this was a blast.
Oh, definitely. This was great.
It definitely did not feel as long as it did, and I still don't even know how long the full full recording is because I've had to stop and re-record. So I think we're probably, if I had to guess, we're probably about an hour 15, hour 20 if I had to guess. Plus the mid rolls, probably an hour 23. Who knows? Well, you'll see it at the end of the thing wherever we're at, somewhere around here. But before we do end things off, I do want to give you a proper spot to tell the people where they can find you, any links to help support you, anything that you want on the screen in the description. But yeah, feel free to take it away.
All right. Well, I guess if you want to like join, we have VRC groups. We actually have 2. There's my group, and then there's the official Terrors one. I have a Discord, and that group also has a Discord. So there's a Terrors of Nowhere Discord. There's my server, which is Torin. I have a Twitter, I guess, at Beyond VRC. There's a Patreon, which I think is at Beyond VR, I believe. It might be at Beyond VRC. I don't actually remember my Patreon URL, I'm going to be honest. It'll be in the description, probably. Yeah, that's really all I got, I think.
Fair enough. And of course, there will be a VRC list, as always, when it comes to the world creators. There'll be a VRC list down below. Go check out all of the worlds, not only Bus and Terrors. Go check out Kuro's apartment. Go check out Waiting for Nothing. Go check out Smile Ghost, even. Go check them all out. But yeah, all the links will be down into the description as well, so please make sure to go check them out. If you came this far into the episode, I want you to comment down below. What is your favorite terror in Terrors of Nowhere? There's a lot. There is very much a lot. So I'm kind of curious to see how many of y'all stay till the end of the episode and comment this down below. But of course, if you are coming, if you enjoyed what words are hard. If you enjoyed what me and Beyond talked about, feel free to click that like button, share, all that stuff. And if you're coming back to check out some of the other episodes, why not hit that subscribe button? You're already coming back anyway. But I do want to thank you all so much for tuning in to episode 57. Yes, 57 of the Noved Notes podcast. Once again, links will all be down in the description, so please make sure to go check those out. And of course, I will see you in the next episode. Take care and peace.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Noved Bus.